Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you have not read James Potter and the Stories of Petra, now is the time to do so. Please go read it and then come back and watch this video. Have a fabulous day.
Honestly, when I read it, I mean, within the first few chapters of Hall of Elders Crossing, I was like, yeah, this is my canon. This is just, this is actually what happened. I think one of the things I enjoyed is how you were able to weave in the epilogue from Harry Potter and show like your version of what really happened at that point. And it's like it completely kept the entire epilogue, nothing changed, but it just added those extra little nuances that just made your story beautiful. And it just tied the characters together and developed them even more. And I also thought it was brilliant that you were able to take Petra and build her up, brand new character, but build her up so much that you were able to write just about her and have stories for her life. And that really, I really enjoyed that.
I appreciate that. You know, I wasn't thinking about obviously I launched from the epilogue with the original idea, except that we were focusing on James. And so I knew eventually, well, by the time I started writing the second book, when Albus was going to go get on the Hogwarts Express too, I knew I'd have to deal with the epilogue and my story would have to blend gears perfectly with that. The problem was, okay, spoiler alert.
Okay.
If you don't want, if you haven't read The Curse of the Gatekeeper, tune out now, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Arthur Weasley had died at the beginning of The Curse of the Gatekeeper. And they get to the platform and we'll go back and I'm reading the epilogue again. And I'm like, oh crap, they reference Arthur Weasley. I can't remember what it was. Like what would grandfather think or something like that? What would Grandpa Weasley think or something like that? There was a line like that.
Right.
And I was like in the epilogue, that's like kind of a funny throwaway line. It's a good thing he's not here to see this. Like I think it was Fleur was dating somebody. She was seen snogging with somebody on the platform.
Right. Snogging.
And they're like, what would what Weasley think? In my version, I had to keep the same line, but the tone had to be bittersweet. Like he's not here to see this. You know, we're reminded that while he probably wouldn't approve, we're also thinking about the fact that he's dead now. So the line is no longer a funny throwaway line. It's more of a, oh, and I had to write it like, yeah, there was an awkward silence after that. Like everybody's thinking, oh, yeah. So
my goodness,
that was a challenge, but I felt like it worked. I was able to end up making it work. Yeah. And in terms of Petra, I've talked about this before, but I did not realize the role she was going to play.
Really?
I didn't, when she first appeared on the Hall of Elders Crossing, I didn't plan at all. I just wrote chapter by chapter just to see what was going to happen. So I had no idea she was going to end up being the bloodline. Oh, more spoilers.
Yeah, more. I'll put up some like big spoiler thing. You know,
this is big time spoilers. I'm assuming most people who are coming to listen to this are people who've already read the stories, so I think we're probably safe. So yeah, I did not realize what she was going to be later, and so the story basically wrote itself. And we've talked about that. I think that's just one of the coolest things about a certain type of writing, when the story just says, "Get out of the way. I'm going to write myself here."
Right. Yes. And I think even J.K. Rowling mentioned in an interview at some point that she felt like Dumbledore especially was one of those characters that she wrote what he was telling her to write. Basically, like she was just writing. She was meeting, that's what she said. She was meeting her characters. And that was something that I think kind of stuck in my mind without me really realizing it, was that meeting your characters, I just never thought about that. And then when you said that about, Petra not knowing who she was going to be, that's powerful because she became so powerful.
Yeah. She drives the story. And that's one of the things I love. I really wanted to create I mean, in a sense, she's the villain, but she's not bad.
Right.
Bad things happen due to her powers. And that's why, I mean, like Voldemort was great as a villain when we were younger and when we responded very well. And I think it worked perfectly fine for the milieu of the Harry Potter stories, when we had a villain who's just evil, who's just evil to the core.
Yeah.
just wants power at any cost, and just is very self-aware of the fact that, yes, I am evil.
Right.
But I wanted morally ambiguous characters. So that's why I like Merlin. Merlin isn't good because he was made to be good. He's good because he chooses against his own nature to try to be good every day.
Right.
And that's the same thing about Petra. She's not evil. She's just really, really powerful and not yet knowing how to use her powers. So that's what I loved about her. Now, of course, there is the Lady of the Lake, the sort of the arch villain, but
Right.
she's nothing without Petra. So that's what I was trying to do. I wanted a complex, I guess morally ambiguous is really the best way to put it, but I mean, not like in the sense that there is no right or wrong, but just that like it's a lot more complicated to navigate than we would like to think.
Yes. And, I feel like you can see that just if you listen to Girl on the Dock. You already see her inner conflict, her inner mysteries, that she's trying to figure out. And it's powerful. I mean, she goes so close to the dark side, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And then at the very last minute, she's able to say, no, I choose to do something different. And that was her epic moment, even to herself. She was like, I chose it. Nobody came, nobody rescued me. I chose to do right. And I think that we as humans can face that as well. We get to that point of, well, you were so close to doing that bad thing, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I chose not to. It was a struggle. And yes, you might have seen me in that really rough time and those rough decisions that I may have made up to that point, but I'm here. I chose something different in the end. And, you move forward from there. So I love her story.
I'm glad you brought that out, because that's another story I wasn't thinking about. We could talk a little bit about like high level about the craft of fiction and the morals that are always inevitably inherent in fiction stories, whether you want them to be there or not. I always felt it was important that the morals in the story reveal themselves, rather than me going in and saying, I'm going to write a story about human agency and a strong female character who doesn't rely on anybody else to tell her what to do. I didn't go in doing that. It was not my intention. So I'm glad that happened anyway. I guess I really I wanted to explore the idea of a human being's individual agency. Would she choose the right thing, even if somebody else didn't show up? And I wanted her to struggle with that. So I think you're right. And I do think this is something that every human being to some extent deals with. How much of what I'm doing am I doing because of my culture, because of the way I was raised, because my friends and my family are telling me what I should do, because my demographic, to ask, is this still truly authentically me? Or am I just putting on other people's thoughts and ideas and priorities?
Right. Wow. And I've told you before, and I'm not afraid to say things like this on camera. I went through a time of severe codependency in my life. And, going through that place of feeling like your only identity is the way other people, what they consider you to be. And you have to rely so much on, your own ability to make other people happy, your own ability to make sure everything is at peace, and I see that in Petra at times. It's like she's trying to take care of Izzy. She's trying to make sure James is okay. But then she's like, but I've got so much going on inside and I've got to figure myself out at some point. And I really relate to that. Now I noticed something. You said Petra, but you also said Petra. What was your original idea?
So the character was named after a friend of ours. When we lived in St. Louis, we had a good friend named Petra, Petra. I'd never heard it pronounced that way, but I liked it. And she resembles the Petra in my story. So in my head canon, she's Petra, but nobody else calls her that. It's always so even today, I still slip and say Petra sometimes. I don't want to, it's not a hill worth dying on at all. I don't care that people call her Petra. I know that's the typical, maybe even classical way of saying it, but in my mind, she was always Petra. I like that pronunciation.
I like that too. Who wants to be classic? I mean,
Yeah. That sets her apart,
That's
makes her a
neat.
little different.
Right. You said 3 stories. You're talking about Merlin's
Yeah.
Gift, Harry's First Christmas, and Petra's Getaway?
Petra's Getaway.
Petra's Getaway?
Yeah.
Yes.
Petra's Getaway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to make sure. I saw that. It's funny. I think I showed you years ago, when I first decided to try to email you and see if you might answer. I sent that I had printed them out for myself as like my own Christmas present. I printed the 3 stories and put them in one of those little report folders. And
Yeah.
so I just had my own little book, you know. But I think when I asked you about recording on YouTube, I was thinking for some reason Petra's Getaway and The Girl in the Dock kind of merged in my head. And I was thinking that it was the one that was already recorded. So if you need a recording of Petra's Getaway, just let me know.
Oh, I'd be delighted. That's
Excellent. Okay.
well, I would say it's my favorite of those 3, but they're all 3 my favorite because there's facets of them. I mean, I love exploring the world of the founders. I loved exploring the world of the Marauders before everything went bad. And of course, I loved seeing this glimpse of Petra's life in the middle of the novel that we all, you know, have read, Gatekeeper's Curse, to see what she was up to during that Christmas, and seeing
Yes.
her powers, like just seeing her begin to grope around the edges of her powers after having kind of caged them in her wand for so long.
Yes. Okay. That is definitely something I wanted to talk about. One thing that I mentioned as I was listening to Girl on the Dock this week, I was thinking about how, you know, spoiler again, of course, she was forced to use her wand, but being a sorceress, she had so much more power than that. And just thinking about her going to that, you know, back corner alley wand shop and being given a wand, but it breaking. And then they're like, okay, just take this one and go home, you know, and not try it.
Yeah. Don't
That
trust
was
anymore.
fascinating.
Yeah. Well, and you made a great point when you said that you think this is something I hadn't been consciously really aware of, but that we all do that to some extent. We take I'm a firm believer, and I say this all the time. Everybody has a superpower. Everybody has some superpowers. Like my wife, for example, I don't think she'd mind me saying this. Her superpower is that she's like, well, this sounds bad if I say it this way. She's like a spider in the middle of a web. Like every time she's interacting with people, she gets context. She can feel the tremblings of the web over here. She can feel the tremblings of the web over here. And she makes these connections, and she's almost always right. She can watch 2 or 3 minutes of a movie and say, she'll know exactly how it's going to end. And she's always right. So her superpower is just this, she's plugged into people and context, and she gets nuance that just flies right over my head. So I'm a firm believer that everybody has superpowers. But I think you're right that just like Petra, often we stifle them because I think our superpowers can freak some people out. Like
Right.
Jail does not say, as my wife, she'll just sense something about somebody else. She'll just know it. This thing, I'm not going to give any specific examples because people might be able to put 2 and 2 together.
Right.
But she won't tell them because they're like, how could you know that? That's going to freak them out. So she kind of she stifles her powers back. And I think particularly creatives often I think we think in unusual ways, and I think we interact in unusual ways. And so I think we feel pressure to basically stifle our powers into what seems more and more socially appropriate. That's our wand. We want to get along. We want people to like us, but we also want to be true to ourselves. And that's the struggle. And I think that's Petra's struggle. And again, I think like you said, I think many of us can relate to that.
When I hear the new stories that are out on film now, I love them. And it's almost like, is it Doctor Strange who can see the different universes? Like he can look at all the different timelines.
Well, that's Doctor. Is it Doctor? Yeah, that's Doctor Strange. Yeah, of course.
Doctor Strange. Okay, I know who. Strange who. Anyway.
Yeah, I was getting confused too.
But it's like he can go through all the different timelines and see what's going to work, you know. And
yes.
And I'm like, I mean, James Potter worked. You know. It went
well, the beauty of it. So the part of the beauty, again, I didn't plan this, but I was just thinking about this because I've been listening to them again on audio just for fun of it. And the beauty of it is really all of it happens in an alternate timeline. At the end of the final book, I think we've snapped back to the canonical timeline. Things have changed, you know, things that happened in the stories. It's a bit of a time travel thing, really, but Yeah. So when people say, well, why isn't why is this detail and this detail not included? Stuff that J.K. Rowling put out afterwards. I tried to incorporate as much as I could, but my answer is always, this is an alternate timeline. Read to the end of the story.
Yeah.
This is deliberately it's a branch of the multiverse. So it doesn't have to be 100% true to the original canon.
Right. And you were mentioning earlier your original James Potter series website, and it's jamespotterseries.com, in case you've forgotten.
Yes.
And so
it is now defunct, unfortunately.
Yes, I know. So sad. I tried to go to it one time. I was like, where did it go? But yes,
Yeah.
I remember the original experience and watching, The Flash, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, you saw it? I'm glad you got to see it.
Yes. So I did have, I know something I was going to say earlier. James, when we realize at the end, spoiler again, that he's been literally in his father's shadow, but that also he didn't feel like he measured up. And forgive me, I can't remember who said it, but somebody told him, your power, your superpower, basically, you inspire other people. You bring them together. And I had never thought about the contrast there to Harry. And Harry was awesome. And he was very kind-hearted and very heroic, but he tried to do everything by himself. He tried to just push forward and make sure nobody else was affected. And he just wanted to do it and, be self-sacrificial, which is amazing. But we also need the people who are going to pull a group together and say, you agreed to this and that's okay. Let's do this together. And I love that his power is to inspire other people. Yeah,
me too. That's one of my favorite things. Now, Harry had to have the journey that he had because he was the chosen one.
Yeah.
One. That's it. That's all. He knew from the beginning, it all comes down to him. And I really thought that it was important. And I didn't plan this, but as it evolved and developed, I was like, yes, this feels exactly right. That James's power was the almost completely the inverse. I want to bring others in. I want to invite them in. I want to inspire them. I want to help them to understand the part they have to play. I want to express to them that I need them. I was just talking to somebody else about this, but the idea that I think we're all reticent to ask for help. James is reticent to ask for help, but what he consistently discovers, and what I think is true, is when you ask someone for help, it's a compliment, because what you're saying to them is, you have something of value. You have something of worth. I would benefit by it. So I think people like being asked for help, but we think, oh, I don't want to bother them with my problems. And I think, hopefully James illustrates to us just the opposite. Most people feel honored to be told you have something valuable that can help and you have a role to play.
I remember reading that part, just him being explained to that his superpower was gathering others together and inspiring, and just thinking that was one of those lines that I told my friends that I was trying to convince to read the series. I was like, here's a thing you need to know, and this is awesome, and you should read it, and I can't help but mention again Snape. And just the brilliance of Snape just coming into these stories and being interwoven all over again. And
Snape, of course, I absolutely love Snape. I had to have more Snape. I couldn't just have the portrait in the headmaster's office.
Yes, more Snape. But
and the more I thought about it, the more I thought I could so see him surreptitiously sneaking around the castle in the years before his demise, secretly using potioned paints to paint himself into the portrait, just looking around, making sure nobody sees, because he knew I'm not long for this world, but I still want to keep an eye on things. That so fits his character. It's devious and ingenious.
Exactly. And I mean, how many times was he roaming the halls at night?
Yes. Yeah, because he's always catching Harry when Harry's out and about. What's he doing up? He's painting his portraits.
Yes. I just love it. I love it.
Is this thing on? Oh, okay. Hi, guys. Really quick, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. My name is Georgie, and I really liked watching Mr. George talk about, his books and stuff. Doesn't he have the greatest name? George. Yeah. Oh, I gotta go. Okay, so thank you, Mr. George, and thank you, everybody, for watching. Bye!